The original Heljan cargo wagons in the pristine branded livery are extremely hard to find, and the most recent batch were sold out on pre-order. I wanted to find an alternative. I came across this HO scale cargo wagon from Roco. Is it any good, and will it work on an OO scale layout? Let's find out. Hi, thanks for joining today's review. So the first thing we'll do is an unboxing, then we'll do a close-up view of the model, followed by a short running session, summary, and final scoring and recommendation. Okay, so now we're going to do our unboxing of this, the Roco cargo wagon, and made in Austria. So just a reference on the code there, which is 47130. So this is my first ever Roco wagon, and maybe just the first thing we might do is do a quick comparison to the size of the box for the Heljan equivalent. Now, interestingly enough, it's actually slightly wider, but obviously a good bit smaller, and that would lead you to think that it is actually a smaller wagon than its Heljan equivalent. But let's dig a little bit further into this. So we'll just take this guy out of the box and just take a quick look at him. So it's a very simple box. He is a HO scale model, so that's what this is down as. There's a bit of documentation there. Doesn't appear to be any detailing kit. So we'll just take this guy out of the box. Alright, we've just got him out of the box, and so we've got a chance to take a look at him. So there we go. It's a pristine cargo wagon. It's not quite the same wagon configuration. You've got this blue bar down the middle, so it's a little bit different than what the Heljan equivalent would be based on that. And I'm just going to bring up the unbranded Heljan so that you can kind of take a look at that, and we'll actually do a bit of a measurement of the distance between the two. But I suppose first off, looking at the two of these, they are really similar. So despite the fact that this is a HO model, it is actually, it looks physically very, very similar to its OO equivalent, and I think that's really good news as with regard to having it as a replacement. The detailing is pretty similar, and there's this kind of under wagon detail here. These various ducting going on here is a bit more underneath as well. It's similar, but probably a little bit better than the Heljan equivalent. Looking at the bogies, these look a lot better. That's a high quality bogie. The brakes are kind of fixed. You can see the brake assembly on here isn't movable. It's fixed in place. So that's a better build quality than the Heljan for me. Nice little wheels there. No, this is pristine, they're not weathered obviously. So straight away, and we've got our standard couplers there. So straight away this actually looks a slightly better build quality than the Heljan. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is I want to actually measure the height off the rail, to measure the overall wagon height to see how comparable they are. If you're going to run these in a rake together, this is kind of important. So I'm getting a reading there of 55 millimeters of the height of that off the rail. So that's the Heljan, 55 millimeters standing off the rail. And really, I think from the just a superficial look, they look to be much the same. So let's take a look at our Roco equivalent. And there we go, 55 millimeters. So their height on the rail is identical. Okay, so just looking at the length of the two wagons, we can see there is a difference here. And measuring that difference, it comes out at around 15 millimeters as a difference. You don't quite notice it on first viewing, and I don't think you'd really notice it too much with the rake on the track, but there is a difference. So as I say, there's about 15 millimeters of a difference, but the height is identical. And as I said, the bogies are a higher quality than what we have on the Heljan. So This wagon from Roco, for me, should work perfectly fine on an OO layout. It should sit in very nicely with the rake of the Heljan wagons, and so I think a mixed rake should not be any issue at all. And I think that's something I'm going to look at. We'll do a very quick running session with this, with a couple of these mixed in with the Heljans, and just see what that looks like. But from just the analysis here right now, this looks to be a direct equivalent. It's a HO wagon, but it looks like it's going to fit in just fine on an OO layout, combined with the Heljan OO stock. So really good news. Slightly more expensive. We'll look at the costs, etc. later on. And again, you may have some challenges getting it, but it's another option instead of paying through the nose for the Cargowaggon version of this, the pristine version, if that's what you were interested in. Okay, let's go and take a slightly closer look now, and we'll do a bit of a very short running session, and we'll get to the summary. Okay. Okay, now we're going to take a close-up look at the model. The first thing to note there is that the text on the side is actually in German versus English on the Heljan models. This is obviously a German model. The cargo logo itself is a little bit smaller. The font of the text is smaller, and the bogies and wheels are actually a little bit smaller, in line with being a HO scale model. But the main body of the coach does actually look quite good, and the actual paintwork doesn't have the sheen, the grey silvery sheen of the Heljan, and I think that's actually more realistic, but people may have their own preferences, and there is a little bit more detail on this model. So next we're going to go into the running session. So we're going to run this at low speed, mid speed and high speed. The first two wagons here are the Roco wagons, and they're followed by the Heljans. And I think, you know, you don't really see a major difference here. I mean, really the length difference is not really noticeable when you're running the train like this. And these are good running wagons. I did find them to be very good, better than the Heljans actually, so I'll give them a slightly better score on that front. So again, you can see them here running really well, very smooth, and you know, not out of place at all in terms of this mixed rake configuration we have here. And another angle on them there. I suppose the thing of note, I think the visual aspect of the Heljan bogies is actually superior to these. I think a little bit. These ones don't quite have the same look, though they are actually better built and they are better performing. They don't have the issue with the brake pads. So we're going to rack up the speed here and see how she's performing at a kind of a mid-speed. And I suppose I didn't have any qualms when I looked at the make of the actual bogie assembly. It didn't look like anything that was going to cause any problems to me, and that bared out in the running session. And again, say we're just speeding up now to go to the next level of speed, which would be a kind of a prototypical 70 miles per hour, which is kind of as fast as you run these from a freight perspective. And we're running at that now, so we're just I think really good performance from a running session perspective. Very pleased with these wagons. I think they perform really well. So that's the running session, and I think top marks. So now we're going to do a summary. So we've been looking at the Roco cargo wagons. The model number is 47130. These are actually HO scale models. They come with standard NEM couplers. The buffers are fixed. There is no detailing kit out of the box, though the models themselves do have probably a greater level of detail than their Heljan equivalents. The typical selling price there, as you can see, for new is 36 to 40 pounds new, if you can get them. They are a little bit more readily available in the second-hand market, and you'll typically see them going for about 24 to 32 pounds. So in terms of the dimensions, I've kind of got a relative view here between the two. Weight-wise, they're pretty well equivalent to the Heljans. There's just 2 grams in the difference. Height is identical, and the only difference really is the length. There's a 15 millimeter difference in terms of the length of these wagons end of buffer to end of buffer. The buffers are a little bit smaller as well, as I mentioned in the running session, as are the bogie assemblies. They are a little bit smaller. You wouldn't know, but again, you really don't notice that in a normal running, because obviously they are a HO model. But there's nothing here. There's no deal breakers here, and I think from the running session, hopefully you've seen that these do fit in quite well with their equivalents from Heljan. So let's look at the scoring. So I've given these 4.5 star in terms of running performance, because I think they really are good runners. There's absolutely no problems with them, and they don't have that break issue that you had on the Hellions. The appearance and detail, I think, are a little bit more detailed actually. There is a little bit more. There's a bit more on the underbody. There aren't the options that you have with Heljan, so you don't have the options for the very nicely weathered graffiti versions. So you don't have those. You've just got this version of the wagon. There really is very little in terms of extras apart from that extra detailing, as I said. The build quality, I think, is a tad better than Heljan, so I'm giving it a slightly higher score there. Price value, I'm giving it about 4 star. I think these are reasonable value. They are a little bit more expensive than the cheaper Hellions, and they are less expensive than the weathered versions. So they kind of sit in between. And I think the benefit really is when you get them second hand, they are a lot more competitive. So if you're to buy this equivalent wagon second hand as a Heljan wagon, you'd probably be paying over north of £40 for it. Whereas here, obviously, we're paying in the region of the mid 20s to mid 30s. So overall, a 4.5 star, and I am saying this is highly recommended. I think it does fit in dimensionally with the Heljan wagons and on an OO layout, so no real problems there. Slightly better build quality and a better performance, and a little bit easier to source. So no qualms. I'm going to keep the two that I have as part of my rake, and I'm pleased with them. And I'm not going to try to pay an arm and a leg to get the Heljan equivalent on eBay, which really just isn't worth it. So that's the review today, a shorter review than usual. Hope this was useful. If you haven't checked out the review of the Heljan cargo wagons, please do that. I'll put a link in the description. And I hope this was of use to you if you are interested in this type of wagon. Hopefully this was something interesting and you got something out of it. So we'll hopefully see you on the next review, and in the meantime, happy modelling.